What attracts me most about China's 5-year plan is the tremendous commitment to a low-carbon economy and ultimately to a sustainable energy economy. In the 5-year plan, China is committed to reach peak carbon emissions sooner than 2030 and to have a sustainable energy economy by 2060. These are very aggressive goals, and I think they're great goals. I wish more countries actually had these goals. I'm very confident about Tesla's future in China. The Chinese economy, I think, is going to do extremely well over the next decade and will become the biggest economy in the world. And
we focus today on the China factory for Tesla in Shanghai. Usually we kind of have a theme around some major issue that's occurred, and we do have that in that Shanghai is now moving to 21,000 vehicles a week from a current 14,000. So if you multiply 52 weeks times 21,000, you end up with about 1.1 million vehicles on an annualized basis coming from China. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you'd like some ideas on better investing and trading, especially during busy times for the company, we definitely would appreciate your support in that regard. We do have daily shows, written or not, and other materials only available to Patreon supporters. And I think you'll find being in that space would be helpful. We also want to note this is a copyrighted broadcast. So something has been going on here for Tesla basically for the last year and a half or so. And that is that with the help of Germany, with the help of Austin, and to some extent with what's going on in Fremont, there's been a goal by Tesla to sort of remove this sort of leading crown of the whole company in terms of the number of vehicles produced from China and possibly just spreading it out among all the factories. Now, we keep anticipating, we know currently that, Shanghai did 80,000 vehicles in June. So again, if you multiply 80,000 times 12, their run rate is around 900,000 vehicles a year. And I'd have to say that's pretty awesome. The thing is that it's kind of confusing to kind of figure out everything that's going on in Tesla. The main reason is that Tesla is very flexible in terms of how they do things. One case in point is when China was shut down, there was production coming from Fremont that was filling in orders from other parts of Asia that were not moving because vehicles weren't coming out of China. We've had situations where cars, instead of coming from Fremont, can come from and have been coming from China heading to Germany while they've been slow in production. So I'd have to say that given this flexibility, it's impressive how the company responds. Now, based on what Elon has pointed out, there's an interesting phenomenon that's happened, which is when China first came on, a portion of Tesla's supply chain was coming out of China, but most of it was sort of spread throughout the globe. What then happened is that the deal that was done with China required Tesla to eventually start producing 100% of the inputs for the vehicles coming out of China or going to the China market to come from China. Tesla, it seems, has largely executed this, but this became a nightmare during COVID because the shutdown resulted in not only production not fully going through, but we also have the issue of the largest number of components are coming out of China now. And as we moved into the COVID lockdown, the outbound parts to the German factory was limited by ships being stuck in harbor in China during the COVID shutdown. And we're not even talking about the fact that, yes, there's production happening nearby where Tesla is in its own little office park, but we also had issues with trucks not being allowed to move from other regions of China to bring those sort of finished parts to the factory or the factory area. So I wanted to, so the goal of this whole talk was to sort of look at some interesting angles on what's going on in China, because right now what we're facing is over the next 2 weeks, China shut down, but Tesla actually put in $288 million back in the October-November timeframe in preparation for building out facilities that would allow what's turned out to be about a 300,000 vehicle increase in production in Shanghai. So obviously this took, call it 6 months ish, and I was really impressed to see a large number of vehicles that have already been produced and stocked up, so that while they're down, they're not able to produce, but it allows them to bring in sort of the new facilities efficiently into the process of production. So I just think this is awesome. Another note here is the fact that, as you know, China is in a situation where if it wasn't for the Chinese factory and the financing process through Shanghai, basically Tesla would probably be bankrupt right now, maybe owned by somebody else. So it's nice to see the working relationship going well. We also had the current head of the facilities in Shanghai has evidently been living in the facility since March to smooth out a lot of issues that were going on around COVID and production. And because of that dedication, he's actually been giving responsibility for production and delivery throughout Asia, which I think is well-deserved given how well that facility is performing. So I'm excited by what I'm seeing from China thus far. The next thing I'm looking for from them is sometime in the October timeframe. I actually expect us to hear that there's another investment that Tesla will make to allow them to add perhaps another 500,000 vehicles. So, there's some interesting sort of how will things work. Think about it. Fremont's producing, let's say, 700,000 vehicles, between 6 and 700,000. China is producing 1.2, or will be producing at the rate of 1.2, let's say, by August. So if we get a modicum of contribution from the other two factories, we're now knocking on the door of 2 million vehicles for the year for Tesla is entirely possible. So we'll see how this will work. I have to say that the biggest surprise for me on Shanghai is the fact that Tesla has become parts dependent on Shanghai. And that's a surprise given the fact that they were previously producing in a lot of different places. But, it definitely makes it clear that you want to have supply from more than one location. The final thing that we'd like to cover today is kind of a review of where are we with Elon and his concerns in management. As we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Elon pointed out how much money was being lost at the two factories that really aren't producing. There are a bunch of interesting angles to this one. Number one, the reason why they couldn't produce in Germany is that most of the supplies, batteries, chips, everything that they would be using was coming out of China. The second problem was that, as we know, they're trying to do structural battery packs in Austin, but they don't have enough volume yet to make that whole thing work. And Elon hasn't set up a production space within what they're doing in Reno, and we're a year away at least from production starting on the 4680s in Japan, coming from Panasonic. So I have to say that I'm excited about production increases that are going on in China that support growth of Tesla. I can see the production increases as China opens up for Germany, as well as Fremont is going to continue to grow and really focus on high-end solutions. But in general, the company is doing great. And if we can get all these things working together, I think great will go to fantastic, which is how we end up growing a lot faster in terms of sales and profitability, etc. So I just wanted to note sort of all these moving parts that are all going at the same time. But in particular, China has ended up being a valuable customer with providing a huge amount of growth and kind of adopting Tesla as a home entity, both the government and the consumers that are driving the vehicles. So I really think that for our show, it warrants having a Chinese discussion at least once a quarter, if not once a month, where major things are happening. But pretty much, if you can see the numbers that they're talking about coming out of that facility, there are over 2,000 vehicles a day currently. Obviously, this is going to push up from there. I just think this is exciting news, well worth our attention, and very much impactful on the sales and profitability of the company, and therefore the impact on the stock. So this ends our sort of discussion of what's going on in Shanghai, how is it looking short and perhaps long term. The one last note I would want to make is that we're kind of headed into a fairly exciting new zone for Tesla, but Shanghai/China has indicated that they need about 4 million vehicles a year sold in the EV space by 2025. And so if Tesla can push towards a 2 million, maybe 3 million number out of that Chinese facility into Europe and into China, I just think that it becomes a critical component of what Tesla is doing, and all the plants can sort of work together to feed the need of entities or individuals around the world. So we very much look forward to your comments on this. Please take time to share constructive criticism of what we've shared. I want to end our formal comments here and move on to our health tips as usual. As you know, we have a list of health tips that we make recommendations on. I actually had an interesting encounter. I met someone who was a surgical nurse recently, and an interesting conversation ensued where we were talking about health tips that I'd learned about, and one of them that I learned from a professor at the University of Louisville was our suggestion that you not go to bed within 4 hours of eating, ideally minimum 2 hours. The reasoning behind this is that your stomach uses acid or bile to digest the food. And so if you eat and jump into bed under 2 hours, you basically have all that bile while you're laying down rolling up into your upper respiratory area, potentially causing cancer. And even if you use stuff like Tums, etc., for temporary relief, the damage is still done, even if you have relief that's offered by these acid indigestion entities. So I was kind of surprised because she said that she's actually been having problems with that. And I was kind of surprised as a nurse that she didn't just visit a specialist and review what we just discussed. But it kind of shows you that some of the suggestions we're making that are coming from well-regarded doctors are things that you might want to consider as you're going about your daily activities. At any rate, once again, thanks for joining us. Congratulations to Tesla. Congratulations to people in Shanghai in terms of the awesome production they're doing despite a number of challenges. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, Lahithroad, Hoda Hafez Strases, Riche Ni Hao Ma, Konbanwa Japanese, Heido Swedish, and in Jamaica we say enough respect, Wa Gudma. Thanks for joining us, and namaste.
It's renewed physiotherapy.
Great. So Mark, every day we do a different exercise, and just wondered what you recommend that people do every day relative to the back.
If you could only do one exercise, what I would do would be to put your hands on your back like this. Do a back bend. Nice and easy, 10 times.
Okay. And
that will counteract all of the bending forward that we do throughout the day, whether it's sitting at the computer, sitting in the car. bending forward to get things and pick it up. Even when we sleep at night, people tend to curl up and bend forward. Doing just this nice, easy stretch 10 times, 4 to 5 times a day will get your back healthy.
And your Renew Physiotherapy.
Renew Physiotherapy.
You also recommend the Cobra, where you're laying on your
stretch would be great, where you're laying on the ground and you push on up like this. And that'll help stretch out your spine.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mark.